Hello and welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Rolex reference 6549 Oyster Perpetual on a stainless steel riveted bracelet. The Oyster Perpetual marks a very important achievement by Rolex. Not only did it combine innovations that put Rolex front and center in any conversation about tool watches, it created a lasting legacy for the brand. Looking back at vintage Oyster Perpetuals is also a reminder of the incredible lineage of watches that the brand produced. Looking at the name Oyster Perpetual, there's clearly two innovations that were brought together. Firstly, the Oyster case. In 1926, Rolex launched their famous Oyster case. It was the first waterproof watch and was famously worn by Mercedes Gleitze when she swam across the English Channel. The purpose of the case design was to keep the movement protected from water and dust, and became a standard case for many Rolex watches going forward. The second part of the name, Perpetual, refers to another great innovation from the brand. In 1931, Rolex patented a self-winding movement. The movement used a weight to wind a rotor, which would move any time the watch was worn. Perpetual refers to the fact that the watch could be perpetually wound if worn consistently. This was the second great innovation and important step to the brand that led to the reference 6549, which is what you're looking at today. In 1945, Rolex finally combined their Oyster case and perpetual movement to create the Oyster Perpetual lines of watches. Now, beyond the 6549, famous versions of the Oyster Perpetual watches are known to collectors, like versions that went on the Everest expedition with Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzin Norgay. Oyster Perpetuals also evolved into having date complications, thus creating the Datejust line, arguably one of the most famous and one of the most famous watches ever. Today we have modern Oyster Perpetuals that combine the same innovations invented in the 20s and 30s, but with a modern twist. The reference 6549 is a version of the Oyster Perpetuals. The reference is not extremely rare, but maintains a very beautiful configuration of these watches. This reference 6549 was manufactured in 1958. The watch, as you can see, has a stainless steel case that is 30 millimeters in diameter, that is in good overall condition. There are signs that the watch has been polished. If you look at the overall condition of the case. Obviously, at 30 millimeters, the watch can be described as sort of a mid-size dimensions, which are definitely not for everyone. If you take a look at the lugs of this watch, you'll see that a polishing wheel has been used, but luckily it was not abused on this specific version. The lugs are a little bit softer, and you don't really see the beveled edges that you would typically see on an unpolished version. The lugs aren't extremely sharp, but maintain size, unlike overly polished pieces, which often feel like they have toothpicks for lugs. One of the distinguishing factors about this watch is the engine turn bezel, which you can see here in stainless steel. It makes the 6549 somewhat unique compared to other Oyster Perpetual models, but shows the variety that Rolex used for these for Oyster Perpetuals during the time, to really give enough options for the people who are purchasing Oyster Perpetuals. The dial really is where a lot of the beauty of this watch comes out. As you can tell, the white dial has patinaed over time to a really beautiful warm hue, and the watch has applied hour markers, Rolex name, and logo. I think the simplicity of the dial makes this watch fairly versatile. You're not really going to be combining too many complications here. Really, it's just hours, minutes, and center seconds. Not only does the configuration of this watch lend itself to a sporty yet romantic feel, the color of the dial does a lot of the heavy lifting, and I think the nice light cream hue that you get really makes it overall a very attractive watch. The watch runs on the caliber 1130 movement, which is an automatic movement launched in 1955 and is a great example of what the Oyster Perpetual watches stood for. Automatic movements fitted in robust cases to create an extremely reliable piece. As you can see, the watch actually comes on this really beautiful riveted Rolex bracelet. And if you take a look at the watch on the wrist, you'll be able to see the size. So as mentioned, a 30mm watch definitely isn't for everyone. You can see it fits smaller, and I have smaller wrists. You can see it fits smaller on my wrist. The Oyster cases have a fairly distinctive presence on the wrist, and so if you if you increase the different models don't really show differently on the wrist. The Oyster case is very, very distinct, doesn't really change very much, and so if you change the sizing of these watches, it fits pretty much true to size, and so 30mm fits pretty true to size, but I think is a pretty good looking piece on the wrist nonetheless. And for those who love vintage watches, you're sort of used to wearing watches that maybe are not oversized all the time, and I think it actually has a really nice look on the wrist. If you take a look at the case back, you can definitely see the signs of wear that we had mentioned. You can see that the Rolex signature on the bracelet. And then the last thing I forgot to show you was the fact that it does have a Rolex signed. The Rolex coronet can be seen. Sorry about the Rolex coronet can be seen on the crown there, which is signed. Holes case, which makes it very versatile and allows you to kind of mix and match with straps as well. Often the feats of Rolex achievements during its past and continue to achieve today can be overlooked given the way modern collectors perceive Rolex. It is really important to remember that those words written on the dial of one's modern Rolex and the case design used to this day are all innovations that the brand had in its past. And combining these with a bit of age, one can come across spectacular examples of Rolex watches that are both testimony to what the brand is capable of and the beauty that they created and continue to create. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this reference 6549 Oyster Perpetual manufactured by Rolex. I think obviously stainless steel vintage watches are really fun to collect, and I think Oyster Perpetuals really bring together a lot of the innovations that Rolex is known for and really made its name for and continue to use up until today. And while this model, as mentioned, is not an extremely rare reference from Rolex, in vintage Rolex, it still is a wonderful example, and I think the dial really brings together all the components. Right, you've got Oyster Perpetual, which are the two innovations that Rolex combined with these models. The beautiful sort of creamy hue that the dial has now is a demonstration of what vintage Rolex can be for collectors. And then obviously characteristics like the engine turn bezel and lug holes to allow you to mix and match straps allows this watch to be really versatile. So a really interesting part of Rolex's history, a really important part of Rolex's history, and a really beautiful example. As always, there will be an article on Life on the Wrist where we discuss this piece. There will be a link to that article in the description of this video, or you can go to lifeonthewrist.com and go to the editorial section of our website to see some more of our articles where we discuss vintage watches. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this piece, and the question for today is, do you have an Oyster Perpetual? What is the reference and why do you love it so much? Love to know, so let me know in the comment section below what your answer to that question is. If you are new to Live from the Wrist, be sure to subscribe to the channel and share this video with a friend who might be interested in watches. And if you wouldn't mind liking this video, it really does help me out. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.